The big question: what opportunities did the Renaissance movement afford to some wealthy women of the time? Although many Renaissance women ran a household as expected by the cultural norms of the day, some women became powerful and influential despite all that stood in their way. One such woman was Isabella Deste. Isabella was born in the Italian city-state of Ferrara in 1474 CE. Fortunately, her father, the Duke of Ferrara, believed in the importance of educating both his sons and his daughters. Isabella blossomed into a brilliant student. When she was only 6 years old, she knew Latin and Greek and played the lute, a popular instrument during the Renaissance, similar to a guitar. She was a feisty little girl who could and would debate anyone on any topic. Other children called her La Prima Donna, or the First Lady. Engaged at 6. As was the custom long ago, the Duke of Ferrara arranged marriages for his children. Arranged marriages allowed powerful families to form political ties and alliances with other powerful families. So at the tender age of 6 years old, Isabella became engaged to Francesco Gonzaga of Mantua, but he was much older, all of 14. Isabella Deste. The wedding took place when Isabella turned 16, a normal age in those times for a girl to get married. Through this marriage, Isabella became related to many ruling families in Italy. After Isabella moved to Mantua, a beautiful city in northern Italy, she wasted no time getting involved in the politics of the city. Francesco was often away, fighting one battle after another with various city-states and countries. When Francesco was out of town, Isabella skillfully governed the people. In 1509 CE, while Francesco was leading troops against the city of Venice, he was captured and put in jail for several years. With Francesco gone, it might have seemed like a good opportunity to the princes of unfriendly city-states to try to take over Mantua, but Isabella made it clear to potential enemies that she was very much in charge and they had better not try anything. While Francesco was in prison, she managed to fight off enemies and form strong alliances with other rulers. Once released from jail, Isabella's husband left to fight more battles. He fought against the French for a few years and died in 1519 CE. After that, Isabella led Mantua on her own. She kept her enemies out and made certain that both Mantua and her home city of Ferrara stayed independent and unharmed. Ducal Palace in Mantua, where Isabella lived. A passion for the arts. Not only was Isabella an outstanding ruler, she was also a great patron of the arts. She collected antiques, rare books, and all types of artwork. Tucked away in the castle of St. George in Mantua, Isabella built a special room. She called it her grotta, which means cave. This treasure chamber contained the works of many of the great artists of the day. Gorgeous paintings hung on the walls of the grotta. In beautifully carved wooden cabinets, she kept ancient coins and medals, precious jewels, and gemstones. Sculptors, writers, and painters visited Isabella's home often. She employed many of them. In fact, for many years, she tried to persuade the great Leonardo da Vinci to paint her portrait. All she could get him to do was a drawing. At one point, he made the excuse that he was too busy working out geometry problems to stop and paint. Finally, Isabella paid another great Renaissance artist, Titian, to capture her likeness on canvas. Titian did too precise a job. His portrait accurately portrayed Isabella, who was 60 years old at the time. When she looked at the picture, Isabella became furious and demanded that he repaint it. On his second try, Titian wisely made Isabella look a good 20 years younger. Isabella didn't forget her fellow women either. She started a school where young girls could learn Greek, Latin, the arts, philosophy, and literature. Isabella was an unusual woman for her time. She is justly remembered as the first lady of the Renaissance. Noble women. Renaissance women inspired writers to create poetry, sculptors to fashion statues, and artists to paint beautiful portraits. However, the sculptor's chisel and the painter's brush were mostly kept out of the hands of women. Although Renaissance men believed they could do almost anything, they didn't think the same of women. Men of the Renaissance believed that a young woman born into a noble, wealthy family had 3 duties. Number 1, she should marry a rich man from an important family. Number 2, she should be loyal to that husband. And number 3, she should give him sons. Titian's second portrait of Isabella Deste, 1536 CE. Overcoming obstacles. Some women overcame the obstacles of their time and became respected artists in their own right. Well known for her portrait work, Sofonisba Anguissola, 1530 to 1625 CE, is one of the earliest known female artists. Most female artists of the time were the daughters of painters. However, Sofonisba's father was not a painter, but a wealthy nobleman. The oldest of 7 children, Sofonisba had 5 younger sisters and a brother. Her father, Amilcare Anguissola, read and lived by the famous words of Castiglione's The Courtier, including the importance of educating young women. Both Sofonisba and her sister Elena lived and trained with prominent local artists. Under her father's encouragement, Sofonisba received early inspiration from notable artists, including Michelangelo. As a young artist, Sofonisba trained 3 of her younger sisters to be painters. Her most well-known works include many self-portraits and the famous family portrait Lucia, Minerva, and Europa Anguissola playing chess. Lucia, Minerva, and Europa are 3 of her younger sisters. The painting captures a glimpse of noble family life during this time. One of the first known women to paint large figure paintings was the daughter of Italian painter Prospero Fontana. Lavinia Fontana, 1552 to 1614 CE, received patronage from the family of Pope Gregory XIII and painted portraits of many well-known individuals. Recognized for her attention to detail and the use of vibrant colors, her self-portraits and family paintings were reminiscent of Sofonisba Anguissola. Lavinia married lesser-known artist Gianpaolo Zappi, who ultimately worked as her agent. Lavinia Fontana's self-portrait at the Spinet, 1578 CE. Sofonisba Anguissola's self-portrait, 1556 CE. Renaissance style. During the European Renaissance, there was more freedom in the style of dress, and headdresses allowed more hair to show than had previously been considered acceptable. The high collars and starched ruffs, or pleated collars, of this period led to upswept hairstyles that were sometimes formed over a wire frame in a heart shape. In England, a variety of beards, mustaches, and hairstyles for men became popular during the reign of Henry VIII. The popularity of Queen Elizabeth I inspired her subjects to wear red wigs or dye their hair red and shave their hairlines to give the appearance of a high forehead like hers. Toward the end of the 1500s, a red blonde hair color was popularized in paintings by Italian artist Titian. To achieve the color, Venetian women applied mixtures of alum, sulfur, soda, and rhubarb to their hair and sat in the sun to let it dry. A new custom in Renaissance France was to grind flowers into a powder and apply the mixture to hair. Blonde hair was considered especially stylish for women. Women often bleached their hair to make it blonde. Wigs or fake locks of hair made from yellow or white silk were also common. Clothing was an important status symbol during the Renaissance. The wealthy dressed in fancy clothing. A wealthy person would have a variety of clothes made from fine materials, furs, and silks. Peasants, on the other hand, typically had only one or two sets of clothing. Wealthy men wore colorful tights or stockings with a shirt and tight-fitting coat called a doublet. Renaissance fashion. They also often wore hats. Wealthy women wore long dresses with high waists and puffy sleeves and shoulders. Sometimes their dresses were embellished with embroidery stitched with gold and silver thread. Women had elaborate gold jewelry decorated with expensive jewels like pearls and sapphires. In some areas, laws that had been in effect since the early 1300s prevented the lower classes from wearing nice clothes. In England, there were many laws that specified who could wear what types of clothes. Only certain social classes could wear clothes of specific colors and materials. In some areas, only nobles were allowed to wear fur. Marriages to keep the peace. During the Renaissance, in upper-class families, most marriages were arranged by parents, usually while the children were still young. Therefore, men and women did not usually date each other, fall in love, and then get married. Fathers preferred that their daughters marry rich and powerful men from other city-states or countries. There was a good reason for this. When the daughter of a prince in one city-state married the son of a ruler in another city-state, the two families would be much less likely to go to war. With a son, daughter, and grandchildren between them, the two rulers would have too much in common to fight each other. This practice of arranged political marriages became common across all Europe. After a while, many of the ruling families were related to each other. The wedding of Catherine de' Medici to Prince Henry of France.